Welcome once again to Kaywon Action Star. I'm so glad to have you tune in. Let's get straight to what I have for you today. The story begins in 60 AD, during the Roman Empire's conquest of Europe. Despite their dominance, the Romans had yet to conquer Britannia, where resistance remained strong. On the island of Mona, the Romans arrived to wipe out a group of 300 druids. These druids clung to the legend of a warrior goddess who would save them from Roman oppression. Even as they were executed, they prayed for her arrival. Meanwhile, in Rome, Commander Polynus updated Emperor Nero on the situation, mentioning the Druids' belief in a savior. Nero, wary of the idea of a chosen one rising against him, issued a decree prohibiting women from holding positions of power, just in case. Over in Britannia, the Iceni tribe lived in relative peace under King Prasutagus and his queen, Boudica. They had 2 daughters and maintained a cooperative relationship with the Romans. However, tensions rose when a warrior named Kaywon warned the king about a new Roman official who clearly despised Britannia. While the men discussed politics, Boudica spent time with her daughters, teaching them languages, pampering them, and taking them to the market. During one such market visit, they came across men being crucified. Boudica assumed they were criminals, but her maid explained that they were Christians executed for their beliefs. Despite being shaken by the sight, Boudica carried on with their errands. At the market, they encountered Trinovant's warriors who recognized Boudica and called her by the name Boudica, linking her to the legendary goddess. This drew attention, including that of a Roman merchant who attempted to intervene. Things quickly escalated when one of the warriors, Cardamanda, killed the merchant, forcing everyone to flee before Roman guards arrived. Back home, King Prasutagus had to smooth things over with the Romans to clear Boudica's name. As punishment, she was barred from visiting the market for a year and had to rely on servants for trade. Curious about why the warriors saw her as a goddess, Boudica questioned her husband, who suggested it might be tied to her ancestry. One afternoon, the family playfully sparred with wooden swords. Kaywon, still mourning his family lost in the war, watched somberly. During this time, Prasutagus gifted Boudica a special weapon, the Boudica sword, a mystical blade crafted by the Druids. The sword shimmered in the firelight, hinting at its magical origins. However, their peace didn't last. The next day, the Roman governor Catus arrived in their village, forcing Prasutagus to bow in submission. During a tense dinner, Catus made it clear he wanted their land. Knowing that any resistance could bring destruction, Prasutagus urged his people to stay on their best behavior. To deter the Romans from settling in their territory, he sent Kaywon and his men to round up local bandits, hoping to emphasize how dangerous the area was. Tragedy struck when Kaywon returned with the devastating news that Prasutagus had been killed in an ambush. Heartbroken and furious, Boudica lashed out at the warriors, blaming them for failing to protect their king. With no male heir, the Iceni tribe declared Boudica their new leader, marking the occasion by bestowing upon her the royal torque, a symbol of her authority. Their celebration was short-lived. Catus stormed in with Roman soldiers, rejecting Boudica's leadership and declaring that Rome would seize their land. To make matters worse, he revealed that Kaywon had betrayed Prasutagus, leading to his death. Catus ordered Boudica to be publicly humiliated. She was branded with Nero's initials and tied to a tree while her tribe was forced to watch. That night, Cardamanda and Trinovant's warriors sneaked into the Roman camp, killed a few guards, and rescued Boudica. They carried her to safety and nursed her back to health. As she recovered, she reunited with her daughters, who had also been rescued. The Trinovants rallied around her, viewing the brand on her face as a mark of leadership rather than shame. They urged her to unite the tribes against Rome, insisting she had no choice but to fight. Determined, Boudica began training, though her fighting skills were initially rough. A warrior stepped in to teach her proper techniques, but their session was interrupted when Cardamanda brought her the Boudica sword. She had retrieved it after killing a Roman soldier who had taken it. Deeply moved, Boudica held the sword, though a warrior pointed out that its bronze material was not ideal for combat. Tensions rose when another tribal leader, Wulfgar, arrived. He mocked Boudica's lack of experience and even broke her sword, throwing it into a river. Undeterred, she dove into the dangerous currents to retrieve it. To everyone's amazement, she emerged with the sword miraculously restored. This act earned her the respect of those around her. Wulfgar announced that he and his men would follow her, marking the beginning of a united tribal resistance. That night, the warriors returned the royal torque to Boudica in a ceremony, officially declaring her leader of the United Tribes. She delivered a passionate speech about reclaiming their freedom and suggested launching a surprise attack on Cadus's convoy in 2 days. Wulfgar was skeptical, pointing out the strength of the Roman army, but when Boudica made her sword float back to her hand as if controlled by an unseen force, everyone took it as a sign that the gods were on their side. 2 days later, Kaywon, now part of the Roman army, led a convoy through the woods. Standing alone on the road, Boudica demanded to speak with Cadus. At first, Kaywon dismissed her, but when she threatened violence, he fetched his commander. When Cadus arrived, he didn't even recognize her. Seizing the moment, Boudica revealed her identity, summoned her sword, and killed him on the spot. This is the signal for her hidden warriors to strike, surrounding the imperial soldiers. A fierce battle erupts. The soldiers attempt to fight back or flee, but Boudica's forces show no mercy, cutting them down one by one. Even when she stumbles or loses her weapon, Boudica fights with relentless determination. By the end, not a single imperial soldier is left standing. Their severed heads are displayed as a grim warning. After the fight, the tribe searches the fallen soldiers, collecting anything of value. Kaywon is caught trying to escape and is brought before Boudica. Enraged by his betrayal, she repeatedly stabs him until Wulfgar intervenes to calm her. Eventually, she decides they should march toward their next target. Wulfgar agrees but suggests stopping to receive the druid's blessing first. That night, the druids conduct a ritual, offering their blessing, a ceremony that involves drinking from Cash's skull. It is as gruesome as it sounds. Later, Wulfgar attempts to win Boudica's favor, despite already having 2 wives. She rejects him, remaining loyal to her late husband, King Prasutagus. Alone, Boudica is approached by a druid who speaks to her about the cycle of life and death. He delivers devastating news: her daughters have died. Struggling to accept it, she reflects on her past as the druid reassures her that their spirits will always remain with her. He also foresees that Boudica's own fate is near, but promises she will lead her people one final time. Troubled, Boudica asks Wulfgar if he can see her daughters. When he admits they are merely visions in her mind, she collapses, overwhelmed by grief. Later, as she lies in bed, the spirits of her daughters appear to her. Though she knows they are not real, she finds comfort in their presence and promises they will reunite soon. A few days later, Boudica and her warriors reach a settlement inhabited by retired imperial soldiers. The original residents were displaced to make way for the garrison. The attack is swift and brutal. Her forces massacre the elderly soldiers without hesitation. Their heads are severed, the settlement is stripped of valuables, and everything is burned to the ground. Boudica declares this is only the beginning. Back at camp, she notices warriors marking their faces like hers. At first, she is unsettled, seeing it as a reminder of past humiliation. But Wulfgar explains they are giving it new meaning, honoring her as their leader. The campaign continues. In a dense forest, Boudica's forces ambush another imperial convoy, eliminating the soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Over time, her army grows stronger, taking trophies from their fallen enemies. Later, they launch a nighttime assault on the Empire's harbor, setting ships ablaze. The defenders try to resist, but they are no match for the relentless onslaught. Boudica herself takes down the opposing captain, relishing the victory. Meanwhile, in the capital, unrest spreads. The people grow weary of the costly and seemingly endless war, leading to riots. The emperor, feeling abandoned and believing his true calling lies elsewhere, takes his own life. In response, Commander Paulinus vows to restore the empire's honor. He gathers his forces and sets his sights on the rebellion. When news of the emperor's death and Paulinus' march reaches Boudica, tensions rise. Wulfgar warns her of the empire's military strength and suggests they retreat north to regroup. But Boudica, driven by the spirits of her daughters and unwilling to align with Wulfgar's strategy, refuses to back down. Unable to reach an agreement, Wulfgar leaves with his men, leaving Boudica with only her tribe. The next day, Boudica learns that Paulinus is advancing toward a strategic battleground. Undeterred, she rallies her warriors with a passionate speech, vowing to reclaim their freedom. However, when they engage the enemy, they walk into a trap. Paulinus has set up a well-planned ambush, using archers to unleash a deadly assault. Desperate, Boudica tries to shield her warriors using her carriage, but it is futile. Her forces are quickly overwhelmed. As her tribe is slaughtered, Boudica sees the spirits of her daughters once more. They urge her to join them, but she refuses to surrender and continues fighting. Just then, Wolfgar and his men return, launching a surprise attack. For a brief moment, it seems the tide may turn. But the Empire's superior numbers prove too great. Wolfgar and his second-in-command fall in battle, and the remaining warriors are wiped out. Boudica, outraged in deep anger, takes down as many soldiers as she can until her daughter's spirits appear again, telling her it is time to let go. At that moment, she is struck by an arrow. The enemy surrounds her, striking her repeatedly until she collapses. In her final moments, she dreams of reuniting with her family in the afterlife. Fast forward to modern times, and a statue stands in her honor. Thank you so much for watching. I currently don't have many subscribers yet, and it'll my pleasure to have you subscribe. Importantly also, is you putting your comments down below and giving my video a thumbs up, which is a ray of hope to motivate me. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel for more interesting recaps. See you on our next one. Cheers.